You drink coffee for energy. But caffeine doesn't add energy. It hides your tiredness. We can sketch its timing through your body, minute by minute, like a clock you feel. Take a sip. Caffeine absorbs quickly in your gut and slips into your bloodstream and brain. It doesn't create fuel. It competes for the brain's tiredness receptors, changing the signal you notice. For many people, the first noticeable lift appears roughly 15 to 45 minutes after drinking. That window shifts with dose, stomach speed, and but the absorption itself is fast. Think of adenosine as the brain's tiredness keys, and receptors as locks asking you to rest. Caffeine fits those locks without turning them, so the real keys can't, and the sleepiness message quiets. With that brake lifted, alerting systems lean louder, adrenaline can rise, and dopamine signaling shifts in motivation circuits. You might feel crisper focus. Some studies even find slightly larger pupils and sharper near focus for a while. Blood levels typically crest around 30 to 60 minutes, though forms, doses, and people vary widely. That's your strongest mask. Tiredness signals are most muted, not gone, and the clock keeps running. For roughly the next hour or two, the blockade holds and tasks feel easier to start and stick with. But you didn't erase sleep pressure. It keeps building quietly while the tiredness signal stays muted. This timing even explains a popular trick. A short nap right after drinking, waking as caffeine rises. Drink, doze briefly, then wake near the crest. Some people find that combo refreshes more than either alone. How long it lasts varies a lot between people. Biology, habits, and medicines can stretch or shrink the curve. Across adults, half-life can span about 2 to 8 hours, so your timeline may not match your friends'. Guides often cite about 5 to 6 hours for half a typical dose still in you. That means a midday cup can echo into late afternoon or evening, especially for slower metabolizers. Late caffeine can quietly dent sleep. In one controlled trial, 400 milligrams 6 hours before bed cut total sleep by over an hour. People often didn't notice the loss, which is why feeling fine at night can be misleading. As levels fall, blocked receptors free up, and the built-up sleep drive asserts itself more strongly. That rebound sets the stage for the afternoon fade and tonight's stakes. Timing now will decide how bedtime feels. How you take caffeine matters. Beverage versus pill can alter how quickly levels climb and crest. Across studies, peak timing spans roughly 15 to 120 minutes, which helps explain mixed experiences. Adding a second cup overlays a fresh climb onto the fading first, effectively pushing caffeine later into your day. That overlap can be useful, but it also drags the masking closer to bedtime if you stack too late. For most healthy adults, a prudent upper bound is about 400 milligrams of caffeine across the day. It's educational context, not a prescription. Serving sizes differ, so totals add up faster than expected. A simple safeguard many educators use. Stop caffeine roughly 8 hours before your planned bedtime. It's conservative and won't fit everyone, yet it trims risk from that sneaky late evening carryover. By 10 to 12 hours, many people still carry around a quarter of the original dose from half-life math. You may not feel wired, but that residue can still nudge how quickly and deeply you sleep. A practical pattern many people favor is earlier timing, wider spacing, and avoiding late-day caffeine when possible. Think of it as mask management. Align the strongest effects with daytime needs and give night a long runway. Inside the striatum, caffeine's A2A blockade changes dopamine signaling rather than adding it. Imaging studies even show higher D2D3 receptor availability during caffeine, which tracks with motivation and alertness. Caffeine also nudges catecholamines like epinephrine upward, adding a gentle push to wake-promoting systems. That chemistry helps explain quicker starts and steadier drive, especially during the early afternoon workload. As blockade weakens, more receptors open while adenosine has been quietly accumulating all day. The moment they meet, sleep pressure feels abrupt, not new fatigue, just unmasked signals arriving together. Subjective alertness is a weak bedtime gauge, Lingering caffeine can still fragment or delay sleep. That's why many people adopt earlier cutoffs, aiming to keep the night mostly caffeine-free. You can time the typical crest near your hardest task, aligning the masking with real demands. Keep spacing wide enough that later residue doesn't crowd the evening you care about. As levels slide, catecholamine buzz and pupil changes fade, and the day's sleep drive grows clearer. From here, the calm-down unfolds hour by hour, setting up the rebound you actually notice. Midway through the day, the boost yields to the calm-down as receptor blocking steadily loosens. From here, your timing choices shape how strong the rebound feels later, even if you don't expect it. A late top-up adds fresh caffeine just as the first wave declines, shifting the curve toward evening hours. It can help briefly, but for slower metabolizers that overlap often reaches into bedtime territory. One workable mental anchor is an 8-hour buffer before bed for your last caffeine. It's a planning tool, not a promise, because individual clearance and days vary. As levels drop, subtle eye effects recede for many. Pupils settle and that extra near-focus sharpness fades. That's another hint the masking is easing, even if you otherwise feel normal. Clearance speed varies with genetics, smoking, pregnancy, and some medicines. Half-life spans roughly 2 to 8 hours. Conservative buffers exist to cover slower days without needing exact measurements. By evening, less blockade lets adenosine speak up. The calm-down is your real signal returning, not new exhaustion. This phase bridges daytime masking to the night you care about, where timing often matters most. Picture 3 nights, an early cup, a midday cup, and a late top-up. Each leaves a different amount on board by bedtime. Less residue usually means smoother lights out. More residue can push alertness later than your plan. People often misjudge post-caffeine sleep. Objective recordings show lost sleep even when nights feel normal. That's the trap. Perception lags the pharmacology, so timing beats vibes for bedtime decisions. When the blocker thins, accumulated adenosine binds quickly, and the sleepiness you deferred shows up together. It feels like a crash, but it's the masked message arriving, not energy suddenly disappearing. Contrast 2 mornings. After an early cup, you start clearer. After a late stack, you start shorter on sleep. One nudges a lighter, later first cup. The other tempts an earlier, bigger one. Tiny choices steering tomorrow. Lower doses leave less to clear, so their evening echo is usually smaller than a large late serving. That's the arithmetic of what's on board, useful when lining up dose, time, and bedtime. By night, what matters most is simple. How much remains when you want sleep to start and stick? Deep night experience largely follows that balance. The rest is your natural sleep drive doing its job. During your first hours of sleep, caffeine keeps declining, but a late serving can remain active as you begin the night. An earlier cutoff mostly moves that activity into daytime when alertness is useful rather than intrusive. Drifting off isn't the full story. Late caffeine can trim total sleep, even when you fall asleep just fine. Perception checks the front door, but the chemistry influences the whole night behind it. Think of fatigue as a tab. Caffeine delays the message. It doesn't erase it. When the blocker eases, that stored signal shows up in one noticeable wave. Pick a steady first cup time aligned with your actual focus window, not with last night's impatience. Anchors tame chasing behavior and make evening cutoffs easier to keep. If your body clears caffeine slowly, modest late servings can drift deeper into the night than you'd guess. Building in more margin solves that gracefully. No measurements required. Zooming out, caffeine rearranges when you notice fatigue. It doesn't create fuel for the system. By night, that's the whole equation. What's left on board versus how strong the sleep drive has grown. Over 1 cup, the shape is simple. A rise, a usable plateau, then a decline you can plan around. What changes isn't your energy supply. It's how loudly the brain's tiredness signal gets through at each phase. Muted or not, your brain continues generating the need to rest. That drive does not pause. As the curve falls, awareness jumps because deferred messages arrive together. Here's the twist. Caffeine didn't power you up, it rescheduled your tiredness. When its hold loosens, the rescheduled messages land at once, which is why the evening can feel like a wall. That reschedule explains a common surprise. Nights shrink even when they felt normal after a late cup. The chemistry ran the calendar, not your feelings. So your plan should follow the clock, not the mood. 3 levers matter most: earlier timing, wider spacing, and a generous buffer before bed. Use them to place the helpful parts of the curve on work hours and the fade on sleep hours. If you want proof, run a week-long test. Pick a first cup anchor and an 8-hour cutoff, then compare mornings. Your measuring schedule, not willpower. The same cup behaves differently when you change the clock. Remember this in one sentence. Caffeine shifts perception by blocking tiredness. It doesn't manufacture energy. Plan around the clock so alertness lines up with tasks and your natural sleep drive owns the night. Bottom line, caffeine edits the timing of tiredness. Aim the edit at your day, not your night. If this clicked, subscribe and share your anchor and cutoff that actually worked for you this week.